Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm a senior at the University of North Texas. A little under 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, a disease that affects the stomach and the intestines. And the way that works is that your body rejects the product gluten, which is an ingredient in wheat, barley, and rye. Because of this, I have spent the majority of my college days learning gluten-free meals that are easy and inexpensive to fit into my college budget. Today, I'm going to show you how to make gluten-free penne pasta, but you can also substitute the penne for any other pasta that you may have around. And it's going to be really simple and very inexpensive, so that you can also have it in your kitchen. Now, first off, there's many ingredients that you're going to need, and I have a slideshow here so that you can see them. And you're going to need 3 cups of tomato and meat sauce. If you don't like meat, then you just get the regular tomato sauce. You'll need salt, gluten-free penne pasta, ziti pasta, or maybe tortellini, whatever you have. 3/4 pound of moist mozzarella, and you're going to cut that into cubes, or you can shred it. I prefer to shred it because it's easy, and I already have that done for me today. And then you're also going to need some Parmesan cheese, and then if you'd like, just a little seasoning, to make it a little bit more flavorful. Now, also, in your kitchen, you should have these ingredients, and you obviously don't need all of them, but they're just an idea of what you could use in your kitchen to make this dish. Now, first, we're going to preheat the oven to 375. Now, you can also do 350 if you like, but that's going to take a little longer. So we'll turn it on up to 375. Then you're going to need your boiling water. So you're going to get a nice cup, just a little measuring cup, or you can just pour it in. It really doesn't matter how much water you have. And you're going to just fill it up nice and watery. And then you're going to put it on the stove top. Now, to keep the water going, you'll add a little bit of salt, just a pinch or two. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add the pasta. Now, one of my favorite brands is the Orgran, and it's a really good gluten-free pasta. It's normally rice or corn-based, so if you're allergic to rice or corn, there's also other alternatives, and you can find them at your grocery stores such as Kroger, Drug Emporium, Whole Foods, Central Market. They always have a couple aisles strictly for gluten-free, which is really handy because then you know exactly where to go in the store. So I already have mine measured out here for me. Just some nice little pasta noodles. You can use penne, ziti, any kind you really need. And you just pour them on in, and then let them start to cook. And periodically you're going to need to stir them, obviously, or else they're going to stick to the bottom of the pan. And I picked this dish because when a lot of you, when we first got here, you turned in, your sheets that said what your favorite foods were. Now, in the bucket, one of the first ones was pasta, so obviously this was a good dish to pick. Then we had mac and cheese, my roommate's favorite dish. We had steak. Now, steak you can normally eat and not have to worry about gluten, but if you go to a restaurant, you need to make sure that they don't season it with any sort of breading or anything that might have gluten in it. And then I also had someone say pie. Well, we're not going to make pie today, but in those gluten-free sections at the grocery store, you can find pie crust and other things that, make it easy to make those gluten-free dishes. So I'm glad at least I'm fitting, 2 of the criteria that you guys listed of your favorite foods. So you'll just make sure to keep them stirring, keep them moving around. You want them to be nice and squishy. They normally say, you can throw a noodle against a window or a microwave, and if it sticks, it's done. Well, when it comes to gluten-free, it's not going to work. So you're just going to need to make sure they're squishy, and make sure you add a pinch of salt here and there. Oh, yes.
How long does it take? How long do you usually recommend boiling the noodles, because it is different than regular noodles?
It normally only takes 6 to 7 minutes. It doesn't have quite the ingredients, the thick ingredients that regular pasta has.
Mm-hmm.
So the gluten-free pasta is going to cook a lot faster.
Okay.
So if you need to make a quick meal, it's actually a lot easier to do.
Interesting.
Okay. Some other ingredients that I have here that we're going to use is Daiya cheese. Now, Daiya cheese you don't have to use because cheese is almost always gluten-free. But if you're not sure, you can just check the back of the bag, and it'll tell you, whether it's gluten-free. This one says, vegan, so you know that it doesn't contain milk or gluten, and it also says it doesn't contain any soy. So this is actually good for if you ever have house guests that maybe have a gluten allergy or a lactose allergy. You can use this cheese, and it's actually really good once it's melted on top. Now I also like to use just some tomato paste. Now Target offers a brand just from Market Pantry. You can get this for $1.25. You don't have to worry about gluten being in it because, as you can tell right on the back, you know, it just says all the ingredients and gluten is not in the ingredients. So you know that you can use this. So not everything is you're going to have to worry about gluten being in. Just mainly, you know, your breads and your starches and other things like that you really need to wash. I also like to add a can of this organic tomato paste, and I feel like it just makes it a little bit thicker and it adds a little bit more flavor, a little bit fresher. So it's very good just to thicken up the pasta and make it a little bit more wholesome. And if you didn't want to use that, you could just get another can of just diced tomatoes. You can find this at Walmart. Very cheap and very good for the college budget. Now, I like to garnish the dish at the end with some grated Parmesan. Like I said, at any grocery store, you obviously don't have to go down a certain aisle to find it. And then I like to add just a pinch or two of basil and thyme. A lot of people don't like thyme, so I typically just use basil. So that's what we're going to use today. So we've got the pasta going over here. We're just going to make sure it doesn't stick. You normally don't have too big of a problem with it, but just in case, we just keep it going nice and thick. Now you also need a can opener to open your can. Today we're going to use the paste, but like I said, if you are on a little bit tighter budget, the diced tomatoes work. These small cans normally run about $1.25, which is relatively inexpensive because you actually get a lot out of the tiny cans. I like to buy these at Drug Emporium. They're normally in every city because, you know, it's just a vitamin store, but they have a lot of different gluten-free options there as well that are good to cook with. So you just pop the can right out. See, it's a very thick paste, but it, you know, holds everything together. Yes, I'm sorry. What was your question?
What other things can you use with your paste? Like, you know, say I didn't want pasta tonight. Like, what would you recommend? Maybe another gluten-free meal, like, does it have to be pasta, or is it good?
No, I just did pasta because a lot of people like pasta, and regular pasta has gluten in it. So I thought it would be a good alternative just to show you. There's plenty of dishes you can make that aren't going to have gluten in them. You can make fish dishes, chicken dishes. As long as you're not breading them, then you're not going to have to worry about the gluten. I like to say just stick to fresher foods versus more processed foods, and it's a lot easier to make gluten-free dishes in that aspect.
So if I mix the tomato paste with some chicken, that would give the chicken a nice taste?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. I really like it. It looks a little bit thick and a little bit gross, but it's actually really delicious. So over here I have on the PowerPoint, you know, just shows you exactly what we're doing. So I have the pasta open, the pasta sauce open. The pasta is still cooking over here, so we're just going to let it go a little bit longer. I have it on a lower setting today because my oven tends to overheat. So we like to make it go a little bit slower just to make sure that, you know, it's staying in tip-top shape. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and measure out my cheese just so I can get everything ready for whenever the pasta is done. Now here's just a regular pasta, a regular measuring cup with a piece of pasta in it. That's falling out. You're just going to, I like to do 1 cup of cheese. Now you can also buy just the mozzarella that's in a big chunk, and then you can dice it and cube it, and then you'll just put it on top of the pasta whenever it's done. But I like the shredded cheese because it's easy and it's fast, and when you have to get back to studying, it's a really good alternative. So, then I'm going to get some Parmesan, and 3/4 cup of Parmesan. And you did, yeah, we're going to do 2 cups of the pasta sauce, and we'll add that to the pot. And then we're going to end up just grating the Parmesan, which we've already done, or the cheese. And then we're going to measure out the mozzarella, the Parmesan. So we're doing 2 cups of the pasta sauce, and then we added about a teaspoon of the salt. And how much pasta I did? I ended up doing 1 pound of pasta just because it makes a lot of leftovers. So it's really good to have, you know, you can come home in between classes and snack on it. And then we'll do 3/4 cup of the mozzarella and then 3/4 cup of the Parmesan. So it really just depends on how much of the cheese you like. Here's another measuring cup. We have quite a few, so it's very handy. It's a little bit clumpy, but... Gluten-free dishes, the reason I decided to do a gluten-free presentation is because gluten-free dishes they're not as disgusting, I guess, as a lot of people think. A lot of people hear that I can't eat gluten, and they think, oh, well, that's really sad because you're missing out on a lot of good foods, and one of the main foods people say is pasta. So you're really not missing out on too much when you can buy pasta and, you cook it the exact same way. Now, does the pasta taste different? It tastes a little bit different, but in my opinion, it's just not quite as thick. So it doesn't make you as full and as bloated and, as miserable as you're eating a Thanksgiving dinner. So that's why I like to cook it. But when I first found out that I had celiac disease, it was very hard for me to, figure out how to cook food. So I just started buying a lot of different cookbooks and reading up on the internet what I should and shouldn't use, and eventually you get the hang of it. If you ever have house guests that can not eat gluten, now you're going to have a recipe that you can share with them. And when it comes to breakfast, you can just make eggs and cheese, cheeses and vegetables and fruits. They're all good for you and they don't contain gluten. Gluten comes in a lot of processed foods, which is why I said stick to the fresh foods. So it's really good. And over here, the pasta's getting to be just about ready. So just going to make sure to keep it stirring just a little bit.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does the pasta need to be fully cooked? Because are you going to put that in the oven?
That's a very, very good question. I like to cook the pasta to where it's just under being done. Now, the way you can tell is you can scoop out a noodle. Okay, you can scoop out a noodle just like this, and then just get a fork and kind of poke it. And if it squishes in a little bit, then it's, overcooked. But if it's hard, then it's not quite done. So this one's still hard, so we're going to keep it cooking. But when it's just a tad bit squishy, but not as squishy enough that you would eat it, then that's when I like to put it in the oven, because it's only going in the oven for a few minutes, just to get the cheese and the sauce and everything melted together. But that was a very, very good question. When you cook, do you cook pasta at home?
All the time.
Okay, so you must have been the one that wrote down pasta.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, what do you normally do with your penne at home?
I like to make Alfredo.
Mm-hmm.
I like to put chicken in with it. And, well, I really like to eat macaroni and cheese, too. Any kind of sauce that I can put with pasta, any kind of dish, it's my favorite.
Okay, well, it's very good to add the protein, which is why I, set on the ingredients, the meat and the tomato sauce for some extra protein to keep you full. But as for the Alfredo, now, do you buy the Alfredo in a can, or do you make it yourself?
I buy the stuff in the can.
See, yeah, that's, normally, if, it might contain gluten in it. So, that can cause problems, and you have to end up making it at home. Alfredo is a little bit more complicated to make. You have to use more milks and creams, but it is doable. So you wouldn't be able to eat it out of the can like you can the tomato sauce, like I bought. But you can still make it, and you can still have the gluten-free version of the fettuccine Alfredo.
Okay.
So it's actually very, very good. Just keep the pasta going just a little bit more. Alright, and now it looks like it's about done. So we're going to take it over, and we're going to put it in a pan. Now I like to do mine in a metal pan, because it gives it a little bit extra crunch. Okay, so since we already have everything measured out, we measured out the tomato sauce, we measured out the cheeses, and now we have the pasta almost done. I like to keep it stirring, and then I like to spray a little bit of Pam. Now you don't have to worry about Pam having any gluten in it. Just to coat the pan to keep it nice and smooth. And then they say to drain the pasta, but I like to make my pasta a little bit moist, so I just pour it on in, because it kind of makes the sauce thicker and it all comes together better. Now when it's in the pan, it looks just like that. Be sure to turn your oven off. And then measure out 2 cups of tomato sauce. Now this is actually 2 cups altogether, so I just fill it right up to the top. Looks just like this. And you just pour it all in. Now I like to mix mine in. Some people just pour it on top, but I like to mix it in because I feel like it makes it taste a lot better, and not just the top layer that gets the flavor. You know, mix it all in. And then I put some tomato paste in. I like to use the whole can.
Do you have to use the whole can?
No, absolutely not. If you're not a huge fan of the tomato paste, then you don't have to at all. I prefer the tomato paste over the cheese, so I tend to put a little bit more tomato paste than cheese. So you mix it in. It looks a little bit gross, but once it's all cooked, it looks very, very good. Now the tomato paste is a little bit thick, like I said before, but it adds a lot of flavor. And you just mix it all in like so. And then you sprinkle your cheese. Now I always just put the cheese on top because it makes it look a lot better at the end of it. And then you sprinkle your Parmesan. Now, when I say, you know, use 3/4 a cup of Parmesan, you don't actually need to. Parmesan, in my opinion, is very strong. But the gluten-free pasta doesn't have as much flavor as the regular pasta, so it actually gives it a little bit more flavor, and I think it makes it a little bit better. And then you put it in the oven. And now you're going to let it cook. And you're going to, you can cover it, but I like to keep it open just the first 5 minutes and then cover it, and you'll cook it for 30 to 40 minutes just to make sure it all bakes together like a casserole. Now, I already had one baking in the oven so that my guests could actually enjoy it before they had to go home. And it looks just like this.
That looks delicious.
Oh, thank you. So we let it cool for just a little bit. And while you're doing that, you can obviously clean up and do everything else, but
Are there any benefits to eating gluten-free if you're not gluten intolerant?
I think there are actually a lot of benefits to eating gluten-free if you're not gluten intolerant. I think it's better for your digestive system. I also think that, you know, just all around, I myself have always been gluten-free. I just never knew it. I always had stomach problems. But once I started to eat gluten-free, I actually felt a lot better. And my family members and my roommates actually started to try my gluten-free dishes, and they even said they felt a lot better. So I feel like there's a lot of benefits to it. It's healthier, it has more nutritional value in it, but you also need to remember to add in your protein. You know, protein doesn't have gluten in it, so you always need to eat it. So then I just like to make sure and try it for myself before I serve it to my guests. And you can just scoop it out with a scooper. Just a little bite. And then try it for yourself. Very hot, but very, very good. Now I hope you enjoyed coming and seeing this presentation. I'm sorry, I have food in my mouth, but it's very good. I just wanted to let you know. I'm going to pass this out for all of you to try, and hopefully you enjoy it too and decide to make it for your homes. I have the recipes here for you for everyone to take home. And I'd really appreciate if everyone could fill out a survey and tell me how this demonstration went. Here are your recipe cards, so I'm just going to set them over here. And if you have any questions, you can just say back and just ask them. Thank you for coming, and hopefully you'll come back again if I ever cook any more gluten-free food.
Thank you very much. I mean, it looks so good, and I'm really excited to eat it. And you know what? It's less than 20 minutes. 20-minute prep time to make. So I mean, I think that's awesome, especially for students that maybe have to work and stuff. So I appreciate the time you gave us.
Well, thank you. And for all of this, it costs you under $10. And you can serve 4 people with just that amount of food. So it's really, really good. All right. Thank you.